Welcome to the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, and for almost a decade, I have been a transformation coach and therapist. This podcast is all about lifting the veil of consciousness and awakening to the truth. It is also about helping you to raise the bar in all areas of your life and relationships by starting with you. If you're ready to take back your personal power and reclaim your life, you have come to the right place. I'm so glad that you're here, so let's get started with today's episode. Let's chat about attachment theory. This is something that has blown up all over the Instagram webs, I would say. I see it everywhere. All the reels are about it. All of the therapists and psychologists are talking about it. And I would say out of all of the different theories that are out there, I can get on board with it for the most part. I also don't like labels, so I don't like to put people, myself included, in a box and say you are this type of attachment. But this goes back, far back. This is not something new. I think it's just something that has blown up as far as its popularity in the psychology and relationship space. But it really goes back to parental attachment. And when my 18-year-old was a baby, I took part in a research study kind of thing in this attachment theory around parenting when she was a baby. And so I learned about it back then, how important it is to have that secure attachment with mother and child, and father and child as well. But now it is really blowing up in the attachment theory relationship space. And I think that women can get lost in this trying to diagnose what it is that they're experiencing. Is he a narcissist? Is he avoidant? Is he this? Is he that? Is it ADHD? Is it, what label is it? What can I put on it? And we're losing sight of what the point even is to all of this. And whether you have someone that could fall into categories of attachment behaviors like avoidant, there's different categories. You have to Google it. There are books on it. I'm not sharing this to be an expert in this at all. I'm just sharing my take on it from a therapist perspective on the different modalities and theories that are out there available. You take what resonates. You take what you can learn something from about yourself, and then you can apply it. So if you're someone like me that would fall into more of the anxious and avoidant, like I would say I have anxious with avoidant tendencies. And that's one of the really disorganized styles. So I am continually working on that, but that in itself is not reason to say what my partner is doing is okay or not. It's just my anxious attachment. If they are abusive, if they're dismissive, if they're playing mind games and rejecting you and criticizing you and are not there for you emotionally and aren't there to support you and aren't there to listen to you, and you're experiencing the silent treatment and stonewalling and long periods of them shutting down and ignoring you and not addressing things and avoiding addressing issues. This is different. So we could easily put some of those behaviors into the avoidant attachment tendencies and behaviors. However, while some of the behaviors of an avoidant that is non-abusive can be very hurtful and rejecting, there is no abuse cycle going on if there is attachment tendencies. I believe that is the difference. So while sure, some of those traits of narcissism do overlap the avoidant attachment, I think we can get lost in that and think, oh, it's just his attachment style, so this is workable, right? You see it everywhere. It's workable. You can work with it. There are books on it. There are things that you can do. So then that might mean then there's hope and I don't have to do what it is that I think I need to do, which is leave to get out of this situation. An avoidant person, while their behaviors might come across as abusive or dismissive, there won't be that high, low cycle, up and down I don't think that you would be feeling the confusion and the turmoil of being in something with an avoidant. You might sometimes feel like they're sometimes avoidant or kind of distant at times, but you're able to talk with them about that and talk with them about your needs, and they will listen and hopefully make adjustments, right? I think the problem lies when we have to keep bringing it up and we have to keep advocating for our needs and sharing like what our basic needs of connection are, and that we need more presence and engagement and consistency in a relationship, and someone else also making equal efforts to come toward and make plans and want to spend time together. I think that this is where it can get difficult. I know for me, I don't want to be in a situation where I have to repeatedly request things that I need from a partner, from an intimate relationship partner. Based on my past experiences, I know the things that I will not do. And so that partly is my own ability to meet a lot of my own needs, right? Because we can't expect a relationship to meet all of our needs. That is unhealthy. That is unrealistic. We need to have a healthy balance with other relationships, other things going on in our lives, so that that isn't the primary source of all things. So that said, we are in an intimate relationship for a reason. And so we want to have our intimate relationship needs met, hopefully within reason, by the other person, and vice versa. So it goes both ways. And really my point here in this is, I know that maybe you have gotten caught up in this. Is what I'm experiencing, is it just his attachment style? And again, I would say that if there is abuse present, you can't chalk it up to an attachment style. So while some of the behaviors might seem similar, maybe you're Googling it online trying to figure it out. I've done lots of reading on this myself and listened to audiobooks, have read books on attachment theory. I don't have any personal, professional training in that in my therapist background, but just more my own self-taught and curiosity really to feel into is this something that resonates with me? And I think it does, in this sense of we want to be in a partnership with someone who isn't activating our anxiety. And part of that is our anxiety in the relationship anxiety, right? But part of that is also our own work to manage our own anxiety when it's warranted. So if you have someone that is doing things that would cause anyone anxiety, then we don't want to just brush it off that, oh, it's my anxious attachment being activated because he's giving me silent treatment for 2 weeks, or isn't responding to my messages, or is stonewalling me and won't talk to me, or is acting erratically or distant or blowing me off or not listening to me. That would activate anyone's anxiety and feelings of insecurity. And if you suspect that they are being unfaithful, or they are, and so you're suspicious and you're anxious and you're not trusting, there's a reason for that. So we have to make sure that what is actually happening isn't just a normal reaction to some pretty fucked up behavior, right? And that when you're with someone that isn't behaving in those ways, that is not happening. And if it is, you can notice, okay, why is this happening? Where's this coming from? And this is especially true if you're ready to make a change, but you don't know where to start, or you need to leave your relationship, but you're really overwhelmed with all of the unknowns and fears around how it could all turn out. I've created a video for you to help you avoid the 5 biggest mistakes I see women making when they're preparing to leave a narcissistic relationship. And I've put them all together in a video where I'm sharing with you what to avoid as you're planning your exit before you actually make that move. Head to the link in the show notes, or you can head to my Instagram account bio link at Awakening Women Official and get instant access to that video. All right, back to the episode. If you have experienced narcissistic abuse and the trauma that goes with that, and you are navigating dating and new relationships, this can be a really anxiety-provoking time, especially within that first 6 months to a year when you're first getting to know someone. So next, I'm just going to go over some of the main differences between the two. The more narcissistic aspects is the self-centeredness. They tend to be highly self-centered and focused on their own needs, desires, and emotions, and they often seek admiration and attention from others to boost their self-esteem. They lack empathy. They often struggle with empathy as they may have difficulty understanding or caring about the feelings or needs of others. Their need for validation. They constantly seek validation and approval from others, often at the expense of their relationships. They may become easily offended or hurt if they perceive any criticism. Fear of rejection. While narcissistic traits may appear and come across as confidence, they're often deeply afraid of rejection and abandonment, which can lead to a cycle of seeking constant admiration. So those are more on the true narcissistic clinical side of things. And this doesn't mean, I always want to say this because this word is just thrown around so much everywhere, right? This has to be like a pervasive pattern across the board of seeing these behaviors. We can all have fear of rejection. We can all need validation. We can all sometimes have low empathy for certain situations or people. We can all be self-centered. We all have some narcissism within us. It's when it becomes harmful, extreme, and abusive, and it is hindering any ability for the other person to meet you in a healthy relationship dynamic, right? There's no way to do that within this when it is going on, and you're not able to have that healthy connection. And the avoidant attachment style, you will see emotional distance. Avoidant individuals tend to keep an emotional distance from others. They may have a fear of intimacy and independence and often prefer self-sufficiency. And again, this can come up with any person. Like, I don't like to label it, but I'm just saying in comparison between the two is they are more just distant than they are necessarily self-centered. Difficulty expressing emotions. They have difficulty expressing their emotions and may struggle to connect with the emotions of others. They may dismiss or downplay emotional needs. And so this can look like a lack of empathy. And so how do you differentiate between the two, right? It's difficult. I think, again, it takes some time to see the patterning, and it's also, what's it doing to you? So there's a difference between having no empathy and you're in need of something and they have no way to even feel or care about what you might be going through, and someone who has difficulty expressing their emotions, right? Both are difficult to live with, but I think one is going to be a lot more harmful than the other overall across the board if it's a pattern. Another avoidant attachment style is independence. Avoidant individuals value their independence and may prioritize self-reliance over emotional closeness in relationships. This can be hard, especially for an anxious type that is wanting more reassurance, more time, likes to express emotions, likes emotional closeness, or it could just be your personality too, right? Doesn't mean you're an attachment. Your anxious attachment is what's causing that. You could just be someone that really values having emotional closeness, and you want to feel interconnected and hopefully not codependent, but interdependent, where you have a healthy give and take, healthy relationship of separateness and together. And then last one I'll cover here with avoidant attachment style is the fear of enmeshment. They may fear becoming too dependent on others or being engulfed in a relationship, leading them to maintain emotional and physical space. And so you can see there's some differences, but some of them could come across differently. And it is important to note that both can have a significant impact on relationships and may lead to challenges in forming and maintaining healthy and fulfilling connections with others. And attachment styles exist on a spectrum. This is the same with narcissism. And individuals may display a mix of traits from different styles. That's the other important thing to note. And that's where it kind of gets, there's not a one size fits all, you're in this box. You could vacillate between a few of the different ones from time to time, depending on what's going on. And so people might not be able to put themselves in that box, so they're not sure what to call themselves. And also it's important to note that we can change our attachment styles over time with self-awareness, with therapeutic intervention, with coaching, with self-work. And depending on the partner that we are with, it can change. So again, if you're with someone who is showing a lot of the narcissistic traits and it's triggering your anxiety, well, that would make sense. And so if you're with someone that is more consistent, is calming, is able to relate to you, then those anxious tendencies might not be there with that relationship. So that's important to know. And I think it's challenging and it's hard to put into a box and put it on a label. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that again, because it is something that is everywhere all the time now. And I don't want you, if you are truly experiencing abusive patterns, to minimize it into something it's not, even though it might have some commonalities. We don't want to downplay things that are literally, truly emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive, sexually abusive. We talked about sexual coercion in the last episode, that are harmful, that are toxic for you, that are causing you a lot of mental and emotional stress. That we don't want to downplay. We have to be able to see it for reality and what it is, and to stop trying to find ways to minimize and rationalize what it is that we are seeing and experiencing and what we're feeling. And I do think that someone with an avoidant attachment style may, I don't think that the chaos would be there. Just from what I understand from the two and being able to understand the difference between the two, is that the chaos and like I said, the highs and lows and extremes wouldn't be there. I think there would just be more of feeling of the potential for distancing and the person wanting to be more independent and less relational. The fear of enmeshment and intertangling, right? But we can all have those. I have those too. So that's why I think I probably have some of both, the avoidant and anxious. It's kind of can create like a push-pull thing in a relationship. And we have to work on our own side of the street, always. So if you're noticing you have some of those traits, recognize that yes, some of that is your own work to do, but it could also be being triggered because the person that you're in a relationship with is unhealthy and their behavior is triggering a very natural anxious response in you. And instead of minimizing it and saying, oh, I think it's just because I have anxious attachment, I'm freaking out that he's messaging with other women and not being honest about it, I'm anxious. Well, then you should be. That's a natural response and you're not overreacting. And so many women go into that, am I overreacting stuff? And what do you mean by overreacting? Are you throwing things and raging and burning down the house? Or are you upset about it, or you don't like it, or you feel insecure about it, or you feel like you don't trust, or that it feels off? That's not overreacting, right? That might just be underreacting. I think some of us underreact, and you have to be able to discern between the two and not minimize what is actually going on. So I hope this is helpful. If this is a question that you've been asking yourself, is it narcissism or avoidant attachment? And if you got something out of this, please forward it to your friends who might be wondering the same. We're all on Instagram these days, and those reels are everywhere, especially if you're someone, maybe it's more because I'm in the space of the relationship stuff, so they show up in my feed a lot. But if you're following a lot of narcissistic abuse accounts, you probably are seeing similar. And so I think it's important to have this nuance and different context so that women can really differentiate between the difference of the two. It's very important because we don't want to minimize true abuse that's going on and someone who has avoidant attachment that may or may not change, that still may cause relational issues, but is not in that abuse category.